Hello and welcome back to the Character Workshop. This time I'm joined with not only Kane, but Bill, the one who plays Cloak, or who used to play Talos.
That's me.
Today we've got a different episode because neither Alex nor Sam has ever watched My Hero Academia. Boo them.
Very.
Today we're going to be tackling how would you make Deku or Izuku Midoriya from My Hero Academia in AnimiteTales. Just for a quick rundown, we're probably also going to go through All Might's powers in this one, so don't be surprised if we don't do an All Might in AnimiteTales, because we've already kind of covered some of the stuff. Also, super spoilers alert, we will be covering stuff that has happened in the manga, but only his power set. We won't be really touching upon any of the stuff that actually happens in the story-wise, but I will just put out there, spoilers. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get on with it. Deku's power is known as One for All, the power that is one power transferred to all and any people, which is actually not a great saying of that. It's basically a power that is transferred to the next set of person. It is one power for all people. Not necessarily one power that can be given to anyone, but it's one power that is supposed to be a power for the people, meaning that it is supposed to be given to the next person who is a chosen person to be the next wielder of it to save the world, or to actually save the quirk world against that who holds the power all for one. Yes, one for all and all for one. Anyway, so the ability, it pretty much does as I've just said. You can pass it down to a person, and when they have it, it stockpiles the power from all of the amount of time that user wielded it, and it then continues the cycle again. The power keeps on increasing in power each and every time that the user is given it. Now, the immediate thing that we need to notice here is before Deku gets it, we are pretty much treated to how its powers work. The wielder, All Might, is given incredible Herculean level strength. So much power and strength, in fact, that he creates a massive amount of wind pressure whenever he throws fists or flicks his fingers. This kind of power also enhances his speed, as he's able to move incredibly quickly and launch himself incredibly quickly. It also seems to enhance his physical capabilities in multiple other ways, rather than just strength, but also being rather fast in the terms of dexterity, as he is actually able to move faster than some people attempting to shoot him. So therefore, it increases his reflex times as well. Anyway, out of all of these abilities that he's able to gain, this is pretty much it, until Deku gets it. He gains the same power, however, his body is not fully tempered to it, so therefore it starts damaging him, breaking his bones, destroying his muscle fibers, so on and so forth, until he can start learning how to use a certain percentage of it. Until he discovers that there are multiple quirks lying inside of this power. He has Black Whip, which enables him to generate a dark energy that pretty much can be equivalent to that of whips and vines, similar to Venom's tendril stuff that he can do. It's more of an enabling of capturing. The ability known as Danger Sense pretty much speaks for itself. And Float. On top of this, you have Smokescreen, and finally Far-Jin, which absorbs kinetic energy inside of the user's joints to be able to be released as a sudden pressure of power. These are the only abilities that we have seen so far confirmed in the manga. In the anime, the two that have so far been confirmed, other than the original stockpiling power, is both Float and Black Whip. Now that we have that out of the way, I guess we should already get down to this. It's already kind of an obvious one, but what do you think All Might's power would be?
I mean, the way it's definitely absolute strength.
Yeah.
Is it? if I can speak English correctly.
No, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah,
In terms of, I was just
pretty
gonna say
much
though, in terms of what perks you'd have though, and etc. I mean, you'd have pretty much most of them, to be fair. I mean, I think you'd have Living Tank, considering you're shown to be able to take quite a bit of punishment from being
Or is
flung
that-
around into buildings.
Or is that just due to his massive amount of training that he is that durable? Or, like, as in his health pool, so to speak? Like, if we were talking about this as a campaign of an AnimiteTales or any other kind of tabletop setting, would it not just be more about his massive amount of health?
You could say that.
I don't know. It's hard to say because you could also argue that obviously later on when he's all sickly, that when he transforms, he does have some kind of damage resistance, right? It's not just health.
Well, here's my argument for this. What if he has 2 boons, and 2 of his boons grant him increased damage output whilst he's using his powers, or just increased stats or whatever. But after he's taken that injury, his powers gain a unique attribute where whenever he activates them for a certain amount of time, it's the equivalent of sort of almost like a strenuous form. Or even an overdrive, where it's just getting his powers back whilst he's sickly. So his new generation aspect, but it's not on his powers, it's on himself. Where sickly body, let's say for instance, as you said, where it's an injury that has pretty much meant that his entire body has been worn out after all of the amount of operations that he's had. So when he transforms back and starts using his powers, it's less that he gains power and more just becomes the man who he used to be. Because if you remember, when he's out of that form, people don't recognize him. And as we've said before, previously with the villain campaign, I think even on stream, because that people did or didn't know who you were, if you walked out in public and you looked completely different and no one recognized you, you actually lost a certain aspect of your credibility. And depending on how your accolade worked, you actually lost that as well. So you could have it that he loses at least, like, potentially, like, 10 or so HP, if not more, just from the fact that that's the thing. You could even have it that the unique attribute is that, like, he's still kicking super strong, he's really powerful, but the downside is when he's out of this transformation, he has like a quarter of his maximum health, or even his maximum health is actually what it's at, and it then doubles, if not triples in size when he's in that mode. Having it that the only part that is actually his main weak spot that takes triple times damage is that one weak spot. And even having it that he rolls disadvantage, as when Nomu grabs him in that weak spot, he says, "Sucker got my weak spot." And it's just that's the way that I possibly see it. I mean, that's not necessarily how you might see it, but that's how I sort of envision it.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think if there's any scenes where he's like shown to be hit and not really take much from it. But most of the time it seems like he's more powering through it rather than it's doing nothing to him.
Yeah, I mean, the Nomu fight is the only one, and the only time that he doesn't.
Yeah, and that's even then it's still him more powering through it rather than.
But still, those are hits that straight up, like, downright destroy Aizawa, who has a normal human physiology. Well, somewhat normal human physiology. Because they say that those who have quirks have slightly different physiologies. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, there is the student fight with Bakugo and Midoriya.
And he does take on, like, multiple explosions, which have been shown that if someone is point blank of them, it does a great deal of damage. I mean, like, Bakugo gets way better and way more proficient with his explosions, to the point of which that, like, he can do ridiculously powerful blasts without his gauntlets on. When he uses those explosions, in the very first fight between Deku and Bakugo, the damage on Deku's body is ridiculous, to the point of which like he actually has like a horrible 3rd-degree burn, or at least a 2nd-degree burn, on his arm when he blocks it. And yet you're saying that like All Might has no like resistance. Like, I understand like he must have some resistance, but like I think it's still more of a health pool thing. But yeah, if he took a hit in his sickly form, he wouldn't be able to tank that. There's no way. So I don't know. I think it's more in the quirk than it is in the thing, which I still don't know. Like because on one hand, on one hand it makes sense. To be fair, you are right. Like it does make more sense that it's coming from the quirk. On the other hand, I also think that it might just be the fact that like the power just gives him back his prime, and back when he was like, you know, big and strong and, you know, building his body up whilst he had a quirk, that's what his body was able to be, and therefore all you know, One for All is basically going, whenever you're using this power, you have the body to be able to save people yet again. But again, that's more.
Well, you know, that is what it's doing, but I mean, I think either way, you could either give him resistance or just say it's large health pool. Like, either works.
I mean, it's also really dependent on some things, because I mean, you could be a complete stickler for you know, power gaming and say, oh well, no, All Might has to have maximum everything, or it could just be the fact that no one else in the history of the entirety of the world yet, or until like certain points, has the same level of
I do
strength.
feel like from his feats, though, it pretty much would just have near enough everything like prestiged on absolute strength. Or you could make it a lot more complicated than that to do with the whole muscle form thing, but it's going off topic.
Fair enough. Personally, I think that the way that if you want to see it, I think the way that I would see it is, it could be that like he has just 6, or he does have up to 10, but I don't know in the terms of super strength. I don't know. I mean, so, but either way, like I think you're both sort of agreeing on like prestige. Super strength.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, yeah, he needs enough range and damage to change weather, so...
Yeah, fair enough. So again, for those of you who don't know, prestiging is pretty much, once you've gotten to the maximum levels, which is 10, you can actually go over them again if you're a superhuman. Superhumans get 1 power, but they have the ability to go over it again, get any of the perks that they missed, or just keep buffing until they get massive amounts of damage, or they can re-go over perks that they previously got and make them slightly better. With this, you're saying that he would also have the mutation, overflowing strength, which allows.
I think it's the evolution. I just checked, but yeah, same thing.
Oh yes, no, it is the evolution. Yeah, where the user can generate concussive force with their hands, therefore creating massive wind pressure and practically like flinging around hurricanes or flicking concussive forces, like as if they're cannon blasts. I honestly, I'd have to agree with you with that one. But yeah. Fair enough.
Well, here's my question then. What would you do with All Might if you were to make him a body augmentation? Because theoretically, you could just say that his sickly form and him turning into his prime is just using the level 3 ability of head to toe.
Yes.
Where it's the transformation that you keep up. And then in his fight with All for One,
he can only use it in one limb at a time.
He can only use it in one limb, yeah. And you could just say that he has permanent augmentation, so that when he well, actually, no, it wouldn't be. Well, no, it would have to be permanent because the mutation doesn't make sense to give other people empowerment.
No, although with augmentation manipulation, it's not just about manipulating other people's, I don't think, or at least its original intention isn't for that. It is one of the things that you can do, but I think one of the other particular things that you can do is augment other powers that you may have. But I guess another particular way that you could read into that is the fact that, like, perhaps it can also further augment other factors, like maybe even having it that, like, there's some other stuff going on, like having it that he has augmentation manipulation, but he can't do anything else with it until a certain point, but he has SPMAs, like he has a way to manipulate his body augmentation to the point of which that he goes, right, I'm going to give myself further more power and I'm going to kick it into high gear. Because if you think about it, they all talk about percentages. So maybe body augmentation, he can actually create strenuous forms or even pure techniques where he temporarily boosts himself, increasing his damage and maybe giving him further advantages in that way. Meaning that in AnimiteTales, if you were to do this, it would be that thing of, okay, I'm going to roll for this ability to activate. I'm currently in this quote-unquote plus ultra mode or something, where now I can now do 1.5 times damage with all of my attacks, and I'm also able to roll advantage on every attack for the next 1d4 minutes, which, again, could be incredibly useful in a multitude of different ways. Whether or not that actually would work well, I don't know. Because again, you could again say that it's body augmentation all the way. But yeah,
I think either way, if he has powers, they have to be prestiged. Like, that's just kind of
fair enough. As much as I don't want to admit it, yeah, I do think that's
because his powers literally transcend everyone else's in the universe apart from like one other person. In terms of sheer power, because it's literally say that the two quirks are constantly going at it, and no one else has been able to keep up since. Pretty much.
Okay. Well, the thing is that they say that, but the reason as to why both of them are so powerful is because literally the two of them have the same exact principle, which is you keep building it up over time. There is another one which is stated in the manga, which we won't go into today, because I definitely want to do how to make that one at some point. But All For One actually wants it, and he can't get his hands on it because of something that happens. But either way, the concept is still the same. They're the longest lasting quirks in the entirety of the show, and also in the terms of the lore. Because I don't think any other quirk enables them to keep going. Because the quirk obviously is passed on from generation to generation, and the other one, well, he just steals powers, so eventually he steals one that keeps him alive. Yeah, okay, no, it's a draw between body augmentation and absolute strength. I would say body augmentation, just because that if it was prestige, you could say the whole super dexterity thing.
I was going to say you could give him defense. You could give him defense, speed, and dual augmentation mode, which would mean you'd have his insane speed. You'd have the reason why he can take so much, and his incredible strength.
Yeah. Okay, so it all agreed on that then. So it's body augmentation. That's the power. Unless if you've
I'd say so.
Unless if Bill, you've got something else.
I mean, I think that works. I mean, probably better if you're just going with as many levels as you want running.
Yeah, fair enough.
Absolute strength works fine as well. It's just easier.
Yeah. If you're not doing the whole extra added stuff, then yeah. But now we get into this bit, and this is why I think it would be augmentation manipulation, because of the ultimate skill or the unique attribute that comes with the power, which is you can augment someone, all right, by giving them the power. And I mean giving it away. So that's how I see it. I don't know if you guys want to come up with other versions of your own, but we'll now go into actually how we think how to make Deku. So I don't know who would like to say their first piece on this.
I mean, which frame are we going for? If you know what I mean. Like,
You can choose. You can choose any of them, any time frame, or any point in which that you've shown in the series, if you'd like.
I just mean like frame to base his powers on. To be honest,
You get to base his powers off any frame you want.
because obviously it's like stockpile thing, right? But is it like a unique attribute amalgam thing where obviously it builds up over the amount of characters that have it? But it starts off without the ability to actually gain any powers. It's just the fact that the first person who wields it is given another power. So he obviously becomes an anomaly, and then that power is absorbed into the amalgam ability. Obviously, because of the unique attribute, the upside to the downside is that it increases in power and can be given away, but also can't be taken away. So,
okay. So you're saying the way that you envision it is amalgamation with an augmentation sort of new gen ability, where it loses its ability to amalgamate to other people around them, but instead it just keeps on building up power of whoever wields it.
yeah.
This also works, actually, because amalgamation states that the ability can only work if you're in combat, adrenal-based danger, so like your body feels so much danger that you actually begin to pump adrenaline through your body, or when you get to level 3, in which that you can power it on temporarily for a few minutes. That could be quite interesting if you just got rid of like the whole. You can take powers from up to like, I think does it start at 3 or 4 power sources?
It starts at 4 at the beginning.
So technically, you could have like +4 super strength or something straight off the bat, and then having it at each level it just increases, or even having it that like, oh no, it's actually been from like multiple people over this time, so it actually starts at a really high number, but the amount of downsides from this is going to be stupidly insane. Like,
it also fixed the later issue of fitting in the other powers that he ends up getting.
Yeah, because obviously that's the main thing that you want with this amalgam build, really.
Definitely. To be fair, I quite like that. Do you have any other ways of looking at this, Kane? Like any other ways that you could build Deku?
Not really. I think that is generally just the best one, because I think if you try and build it any other way, it starts to get really messy.
Yeah,
like, unique attribute you'd need for it would just be
paragraphs long.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually do think I have one. Body augmentation, again, going off of the unique attribute system, but the way that it goes is the body augmentation manipulation, and the fact that you can just pass it on to someone else. And you literally just go, okay, here you go, this is the power that you're given. The power cannot be, obviously taken, but it can be forcibly placed upon someone. You could, however, state that that person needs to give it away very quickly, or depending on how many powers they also have themselves, because of the danger of having too many quirks at once. Or the too many powers at once, due to obviously the Animite radiation thing. You could do it based off of that. I think that would work quite well with the whole base factor, like the whole, as we said, super strength, super durability, and super dex. The obvious problem with this, every other power.
It's the main difficulty.
In theory, before Black Whip, this would have been the easiest power to make as a really cool homebrew. Like, I was given it, and he was given it before him, and he was given it before him by someone else. And now that it's finally been passed down to me, I have all of their strength, and I now have all this power, and it's a really cool power, but the downside is that I don't have a lot of control over it, so because I don't have a lot of control over it, I can't do it. And the way that you could do this, the straight up way that you could do this, is you have the unique attribute that you have all of the levels. You have all of the levels ready. So you are already at level 20 on your powers. But you're leveling, you're still going through the powers, because as each level you go up, that is another level of control you have over the quirk. Similar to when Deku first starts, he goes, right, I'm going to jump up and punch this robot in the face. He breaks both of his legs and shatters his hand. The next time he tries to use his quirk, he completely destroys one of his fingers and his entire arm. There have been so many times where he has destroyed his body, but then when he gets finally to level 3, he can then use head to toe. And at that point, it's like, right, I can now coat my body in a small amount of the power. And at that point, you could then have it that at this exact point, you are now able to use the holdback mechanic, and you give yourself only 1 point of super strength. Because if you do any more than this right now, you will explode, or you will break yourself. So it's just literally doing those things. You could even have it that before he got to level 3 in his powers, let's say, for instance, he was at level 1, punched that Nomu, and the DM was just like, well, he has shock absorption, so he absorbs all of the impact from your attack. Or, well, you got a natural 20, so when you hit the thing, you don't, for some reason, break your own arm. But it does no damage because he absorbs all the shock. So, you could do it like that. That's how I envision it. Up until the multiple quirks thing, that's how I envision that you can do it. It's a shame that there's so many now.
Yeah,
it's become a lot more complicated.
Like, I like it. I like the whole multiple quirks thing. It's interesting. It's just it's difficult narratively in a lot of ways because
to be fair, a lot of the extra powers you'd get, not all of them, but like a lot of them would kind of just be unique attribute versions of specific powers.
Yeah, exactly, because they're all,
like Black Whip would just be like energy beam emission, and then unique attribute to be in the whip's form, and that's the only state it can take.
Yeah.
I guess Danger Sense would be Adaptive Mind?
Yes, quite literally, yeah. Recently we just found out that it isn't actually all that perfect. Danger Sense can help the user determine whether or not there's a certain amount of danger within an area. It can also be pinpointed on a specific person, and you can tell what is the least dangerous part of them, meaning that you know where their weak spots are. However, due to a specific type of personality, certain people are immune to being sensed by Danger Sense. So it's kind of the Venom thing, where it's like, because that Venom was once... I don't know if it's because Venom is an alien, or if it's because the concept of Venom was once part of Spider-Man. I can't remember the continuity. Sam will tell me off next episode, don't worry. I actually might bring this up to him. But yeah, so... We recently found that out about Danger Sense anyway. But yeah, Danger Sense is... Yeah, you're absolutely right. What about smoke screen then? Because you can generate a large area of smoke.
You could make it like a unique attribute of a lot of emission abilities. You could just do pyrokinesis, but it's just a very weak new gen of pyrokinesis.
Yeah, because he also can't manipulate it. He can only generate it.
Yeah,
I thought he could manipulate it because I thought that he was told that
no, that's the danger of it.
The wider you spread it, the less control you have over it.
Somebody check this on the wiki.
Yeah, I'll Google it. Give me
just quickly have a look. Either way, yeah, I do kind of like the idea that it's pyrokinesis or aerokinesis, but yeah, like
Either could work.
Pyrokinesis and generation.
No,
ones.
yeah, pyrokinesis is...
So manipulation, yeah.
Float. Ah, darn. What could float be, guys?
I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
that's a
sure.
difficult one.
If only we had a power based on flight, it could work. Yeah. For those of you who obviously don't get that, flight is a power. Yeah, well, obviously, float is flight. Float is flight. Flight is float. Flight is float. That
English.
English. Float is flight. So that would work. And what's the last one I just mentioned? Fargin. Well, kinetic empowerment, stockpiling.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Yeah.
But it can only work based on the amount of damage that you deal or the amount of energy that you're.
Yeah, it's based on movement, I think.
Yeah.
It's movement in joints and kinetic power that's being stored up within the limbs. So
yeah, I feel like
he
that's
lands and stuff. Yeah, you could do that. It could basically just be the ability of every little helps. I think it's called or something like that.
Yeah.
Or it's. I think it's called that. Either that or it's called passive absorption or something like that.
Yeah, as far as I'm able to see, it does not allow manipulation of the smoke. You can just generate the smoke.
Ah, okay. I think he can control how much of it he generates.
Yeah, the less he makes, I think the denser he can make it. So the reason why he doesn't want to spread it too out is because it then becomes too thin and useless. Yeah.
It's based on dispersal.
Yeah.
So obviously, if he only generates like a small amount, it's a perfect cloak of smoke that no one can see him. But the larger of an area that it goes, it's now dispersing within the air. And by the time that it gets outside of a specific radius, it's so thin that it doesn't even exist, to be fair. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Okay, so that's the rough part of it. I mean, I don't honestly know how you could do it. There's 3 different ways that you could do this, because there's your way and there's my way, and there is actually another way which sort of combines the two, which is having it that you have stockpile. So you have the whole stockpile thing. You have the whole giving it away, is stockpile manipulation, but it has a unique attribute. Where obviously you can give it away. The only way that I can think of this, it's gonna sound like a horrible cop-out. Still augmentation manipulation, but it's not prestiged. But instead, it's actually... I mean, to be fair, it could still work with prestige, but no, it's stored up with prestige and another power, copying, but specifically ability learning. And the ability learning, it's based off of time limit over. Well, no, not time limit. It's based on most of the abilities, giving it around about 6 or 7 abilities that it's learned, and each ability is one of the 7 quirks that were used in it. So it has only the ability of Black Whip, has only the ability of Smokescreen, has and technically in this particular light, you could have it as like, well, you've seen this perk and of this ability, and therefore you can only use this perk of this ability. And technically, you could do this without any unique attributes. Technically. You just never use the copying. You only use the ability learning, and you could potentially have it where, I don't know, you have some unique attribute if you wanted to, where you take away some of the aspects of the power to get more super stats from it. Or you could just literally leave it the way that it is and get the best that you can out of the situations that you've got. And then have it that like, oh, you've copied this guy's energy manipulation, so you can now generate this stuff called Black Whip. You've seen someone using flight, so you can now have the ability which you are naming float. you've seen this person with the special ability who generated smoke, you can now do the same, and so on and so forth. And with augmentation manipulation, you can augment the other power, and then just make it more powerful. Black Whip now has a better range in damage. Float now has a better range in speed. The Dispersal ability has better range. Damage Sense has a better range, so on and so forth. And I think that's a way that you could work it. It's not as good. You probably wouldn't be as OP, and you'd have to come up with a lot more weaknesses if you wanted a unique attribute. However, if you didn't want to cop out with a unique attribute, copying and the other one would work that way. I still do think that, Bill, your one is the better one. It's just that I do think that your one is also dangerously close to the concept of just heavy homebrew. And I know that the last time that we did one of these episodes, we did the whole argument of heavy homebrew. Actually, no, the last time that we did one of these ones was the Bard one. We actually didn't really talk too much about heavy homebrew.
No, not at all.
I feel like the main reason you can get a lot of homebrew stuff is just because a lot of his powers are from his backstory. Like, it's from a long kind of lore.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the premise of it. It's like a legacy power.
Absolutely.
A legacy amalgam.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, we were saying this with the Avatar one as well, where it's like, if the unique attribute and the story behind it works well enough, it could be done. Like, for instance, like, in a campaign, like, I'm currently setting up the campaign known as The Revealing, which is set in the apocalypse, and it's going to be the end of days. I'm giving everyone 31 levels, and plus your trades, that's going to give you anywhere up to 37 or 35 in total. That is enough to be able to create this kind of character, and with a backstory like that, I'd probably allow something like it, if not exactly it. Because I'd be interested to see that kind of style of thing. Because again, like it's part of the roleplay aspect. Like the concept of AnimiteTales is supposed to be a mixture between power fantasy and roleplay, where you combine the two together, and you get this moment of, well, hang on a second, if I can make this crazy thing, this would be quite an interesting sort of build to play as. I want to play as All Might, or I want to play as apart from D&D, even though that, like, you know, it's a thing based on powers, or I want to play as Superman, or even just simply having something as weird as I want to play as a leprechaun, which I know that someone wanted to do at one point. Alfie played as a time angel. And you can have like these really OP concepts, or you can have something as interesting or as silly as a person who is wearing only a bush as clothing. And they are a doctor of 30-something years of age, and they just go from town to town trying to do good, only to keep accidentally messing up and having to leave to go off and try and do good somewhere else. And I like that you can do weird stuff like that. Like, you played as a character who could just control puppets. And your character was not necessarily by any means a massively OP power fantasy character. But you got to play the power fantasy of being able to control inanimate objects so that you just stay back. And at one point, you animated a power armor, stole it, and then, wore it. And as it walked around, you could then fall asleep as it then started trudging around and doing tasks that you were asking it to do. So you were both protected and able to go on in your daily life. That's an interesting sort of, mixture between the two. And I think with this character, this would be so much, as you said, so much like backstory built into it. The stockpiling aspect, I think, would be quite difficult, because obviously, as we just said, the backstory is the whole point. But if you think about it, let's put it this way: it's not lazy writing by any measures. I don't believe that. I still think Horikoshi is probably one of the best writers so far. to have come up with, a new concept for a new show. It's just that, like, one of the issues that a lot of people have is, like, the ways that he's done some of the things. But I will say he does subvert some of the expectations. Like, the whole big thing that, again, spoiler alert, the whole big thing that everyone believed that Bakugo was going to become a villain. And then the one time that they had this big opportunity, like, the villains steal him and they're going to take him back with him and everyone believes that he's going to become a villain. Basically, it was the equivalent of Horikoshi going, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a hack. But at the same time, he does make a lot of video game and Star Wars references. But my point is that his main character got the equivalent of, oh, I'm not born with any powers. Here's a power that is the most powerful power in all of existence. But the thing is, he unlike whoever would get this power in any other situation, he struggles with it, which is interesting, because what makes a power, or at least a hero, interesting is the struggle with their powers. Read almost any Spider-Man comic or watch almost any Spider-Man movie, and they have it where he struggles with the usage of his powers at some point, and it makes it compelling. It makes it interesting. So potentially having this kind of character being that, like, they could be really powerful, but they're not at max level yet. Or that their powers are max level, but they themselves are not max level with their powers. So again, it's kind of like, this would be a really weird mechanic to do, but it's like, say for instance, you played Talos and your character level at the time was like what? Your power level at the time was like what? 12 or 15 by the time that you ended?
Power was actually level 20 in the end.
Oh, wow, okay. That is insanely powerful. But imagine if you then gave it to someone else, instead of them just getting all 20 levels, and they can use it straight off the bat, having it that, yes, you have this 20 level power, yes, you can generate the amount of damage that he can do at day one. However, you roll disadvantage until you get to level 3, or however you get issues with trying to assert the manipulation of this power, or however there is backlash to it because it is too powerful for your current body or mind to be able to withstand because of that. And just having that aspect of it is like, yeah, it's a level 20 power, but as you level up, you don't get the choice as to what you get. You just get another level of control over it. So it's like, say for instance, if I said, let's say, for instance, you got a power that starts you off with 5d10s because it's, maxed out at level 20 or something. And you can do like, not 5d10s, but let's say 3d10s or something. And then it's like, well, actually, the safest amount of damage you can actually use is only a d8. So if you want to use any more, you can, but you'll now be taking recoil, but you'll now have to roll disadvantage, but you damage the part of your body that used that part. Come to think of it, that actually could be a really interesting mechanic that we actually add to the game. Where you can actually steal people's powers at a higher level than yours, but it comes at a horrible price of your body is not yet ready for it. So therefore, yes, the power's level 10, but you're not level 10 with this power. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come up with that sort of stuff before, but not used it.
Yeah, maybe we could implement it. Yeah. Anything else to add to this one? I know there's a couple of bits of equipment, but is there anything else that you'd like to add to the powers aspect of this?
I feel like the powers, you could kind of spend all day just specking out all of these people's powers if you're on the amalgam with like, all these people were, superhumans, but then they became anomalies with the legacy amalgam ability. Although you could just spec out all their powers, but I don't know if that's really necessary. That'll take a while.
I mean, it depends on how much dedication. If someone came to me with that, depending on the campaign, I might actually go, yes.
Yeah, no, for a campaign, yeah, I would actually do that.
For a one shot, I'd be like, no.
No.
I think you're right though. You because we said this same thing about We said the same thing about Alex playing as the Avatar sort of build and having that thing of like it's a unique attribute amalgam, having this concept of they have to spec out every single elemental manipulation power.
I think it was their powers they'd start off with the 4 basic elemental manipulation ones, but it would be the same level as their amalgam.
Mm.
And
So
then
it's
going every time the amalgam would level up, the other powers would also level up. But if they took but then if they took a buff, they would have to. Then it would be like, oh, then possibly they could get lightning and energy bending,
and telepathy,
and manipulation.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. But yeah, and it was concept of once your amalgam reaches level 10, your other powers would also be level 10.
And you have to choose each one that you wanted, sort of thing.
Yeah, and each perk can buff for each of one of those powers.
But I think with that, you could definitely do that concept of doing the same if you wanted to start with a similar kind of character to this, but you wanted to start them from the very beginning. So you could still do the Avatar / even doing the same sort of thing with Deku, where it's like you start off with 4 different powers. How do you go about it? It's like, well, one of them's body augmentation, and the other one is super strength. The other one is super dex, and the last one is, I don't know. Let's say, for instance, it's you could either state that it's dermal armor, or you could state that it's super perception or super wisdom or something, or even flight or something. And then just going off of those like 3, if not 4 powers, and they level up as you level up, and they get more and more powerful, and you spec out each and every single one. The way that Deku is portrayed in the show, however, definitely he'd start off with a maximum level power, but as he got better with it, he gets more control over it. So it's like, again, as I said, like, imagine it that he can do 5d10s, but right now, if he does 5d10s, he immediately shatters his arms. Like, there's no way that he can get out of it. He can't even roll for con. He just breaks them. However, when he gets to level 3, he can now have the ability to pass all of that power into his body, like the amalgam mode, or head to toes, throughout his entire body, and he can use it. However, if he uses all of that power, maximum damage output, any part of his body that is utilizing it breaks immediately. So you could actually have that whole concept of that's 2 downsides immediately off the bat, because on one hand, it breaks them. On the other hand, well, technically it's 3. On one hand, he has to roll. On the other hand, he has to roll disadvantage. Or on the final hand, it's no, he actually just instantly breaks it. He can't even roll for it, which I would consider as 3 downsides in the ability system, which would mean that he's got 3 ability points to work with there. But again, I think, to be fair, you said it perfectly, Bill. You could spend all day just specking out how his powers work.
Yep.
Stats. What are we thinking for stats?
We doing Deku stats or?
I'd say Deku stats, yeah.
I'd say 2 of the highest stats would probably be intelligence and charisma.
I'd say it. I'm gonna have to go the opposite. I'm gonna have to say I definitely think intelligence. I'd say the other one potentially would be. See, I don't know about. I'd say
his physical stats are never shown to be that great outside of with the power.
That's why I started pausing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it would.
As time goes on, it does get physically stronger.
Yeah, without his powers. I mean, hell.
I think that would just be more putting character levels into those things rather than him starting off with.
I don't know, but here's the argument that you and I were saying at the beginning of the what if My Hero Academia was a campaign. Check that out, and we will definitely be doing a part 2 to that at some point soon. We promise. We said that Deku's journey, if it was a campaign setting, wouldn't start during the whole training montage. It would actually start when he goes to UA. So you could state that it's actually the higher thing that he has is wisdom. The higher thing that he has is intelligence. Then it goes a bit of strength and a bit of dex. But then, like, flat con, okay-ish wisdom, and flat, if not minus charisma. Because his actions are the most charismatic part about him for a long time. Because it takes him ages for anyone to trust him or like him until his actions speak louder than any words that he can convey. And to be fair, how many times have we seen that Deku cannot speak in any situation?
Yep.
So I'd say at least 1 minus to that charisma. Willpower. Definitely, a minimum is 8. Like, maxed out
His
superhuman.
willpower is good, obviously.
It's the very thing that keeps him going. And if anything, I'd actually say that he actually has techniques in it that he creates, that he doesn't even know he creates. Because the sheer willpower that he imbues in a lot of the aspects of his powers is the very thing that keeps him going. One of which that I definitely think would 100% be a thing is hysterical strength. Because he can unlock that hysterical strength. And he has done it only once in an actual fight, but he still charges through and puts himself in incredible pain just to be able to make sure that other people are safe. So I'd argue that his willpower has always been high, and that he has been able to create incredible techniques throughout the entirety of him being a hero. I have to say, I don't think Kon ever changes. I just think that his power gets better. Like, his control over his power gets better rather than his con.
Yeah.
Because if he gets shot or stabbed, he is still human. Even if he's moving at the speed of sound, he still can be hurt by bullets. So I'd argue that he doesn't have any better con. His strength and his dex, as well as his intelligence, are probably the things that mostly go up. But I'd say during the 3rd arc, if not further, his wisdom starts increasing. Because he starts gaining experience.
Yeah.
Power discovery.
I don't think we have one for that.
What? Well, you jest, and we already know where this is going, but I don't actually know if it's gift or new generation. Because either works.
I mean, his power discovery is gift, but the actual original one is new gen.
Yeah, so, like, how do you explain this to your DM? Like, by the way, DM, my power discovery is gift. It was given to me.
But the first guy
first guy who had it, it was new generation. Like, that is the jammiest crap that you could ever pull. Like, so, I know that you said I could have one pet, but my pet has the ability to clone itself into an army. And they're all technically gods, but only the clones are. Because that's how the lore of these creatures works. Because they get more powerful the more times that they clone themselves. And this one has cloned themselves.
I should steal that idea.
Yeah. But my point is that there's so many different jammy things that you could do with power discovery. That, I don't know if you could get away with that. Because if you modelled it like, can I basically play as Deku and my power discovery is gift, but the discovery of the original person who originally had the power was new gen, I would have to say yes because I know the backstory. But if you came to me with this and just went, so my power discovery is theft, or my power discovery is gift, or my power discovery is this, but my power is actually a new generation power, I'd be like, I don't know if I like this, because that's asking for two things.
I mean, to be fair, you could always say it's new generation, and then just have in the backstory that he gets given it, but you don't actually gain any upsides from it.
I mean, that is another possibility, yes, because it's a completely unique power.
Because then
in
it's
of
like,
itself.
okay, yeah, it's still technically in your backstory that you start off as a human, you get given it. It's just you don't get the extra willpower bonus.
Yeah, you just don't get the bonus willpower. Yeah, which I think, in all honesty, that could work. But at the same time, I think if you did do that, it would also make sense as to why his willpower is so much better than anyone else's. Because again,
Oh yeah,
he runs at that freaking slime creature with zero capability of fighting it, and
Yeah, he can't do it.
yeah, I mean, also it could have just been a random brash decision. So,
well, I think it's more instinct. It's more his virtue. Is the fact that he'll put his without even thinking, he'll put himself in danger just to help someone else.
good. Right, so we're getting into the personalities check now, yeah? Because I don't think we need to bother with weight and speed.
No.
No.
Yeah, let me just Google his weight quickly.
I have to be honest, I don't care. Actually, to be fair, that would be kind of interesting to know, but I don't care. Yeah, okay, so we'll go for vices and virtues. This is the equivalent of the alignment system. So a vice and virtue. I'd say virtue is obviously like, I guess you could say valor or heroism, self-sacrifice. I guess.
Well, it's just more selflessness, because even in out of situations, he'll still put others before himself, even if it's in small means.
Pretty much in basic normal human dialogue, because they do actually have a lot of basic normal human dialogue situations where they do actually try to talk like normal people. His catchphrase is pretty much like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So yeah, to be fair, selflessness makes sense. On top of obviously the heroism and the fact that the very first time that we actually see him doing an epic thing is him being selfless.
Yeah.
Vice. I'd say stubbornness. Because that is something that he, like, his flaw, his personality flaw, I'd say, is his stubbornness.
Yeah, I guess in the arc where it kind of goes solo, that makes sense.
Well, not even just that. I mean, if you think about it, his stubbornness sort of ties in with his selflessness. He cares so little about himself that because that he's so thankful for other people that he cares not even anything about himself, to the point of which that he'll actually damage himself in that arc that you're talking about. But you also see it in the fact that he jumps in, even though that he knows that he would be in a lot of trouble against the hero killer. He ends up fighting against Shiozaki, even to the point of destroying his own body, and keeps going, even though that he's in a lot of pain and he should be letting her go. But he's stubborn because he will not give up. And against Bakugo, he keeps fighting because he just doesn't want to be, quote, his punching bag anymore. He is stubborn, and we don't often see that in him as a form of a flaw, but that is something that you do get to see later on, that he will not stop. I mean, he loses sleep over not actually getting his powers right. And I'd say that it, to a degree, he has stubbornness and an obsession with striving for perfection. So yeah, I'd say he's either stubborn or he's obsessed or easily obsessive.
Yeah, I mean, he's obsessive.
Yes, which will
See how
actually
OCD, maybe.
maybe, which will actually now get into this obsession. Becoming a hero is definitely on the height of that list. Fighting all for one, but I think there is one that topples all of those towers and would definitely be the number one obsession. Could you perhaps guess what it is?
I have no idea.
How about you, Kay?
No, definitely not.
It's
Perhaps his father.
his no, not his father. It's All Might. Although to be fair, yeah. Anyway,
Same thing, really.
Dad, or you mean All Might, right? What? No,
Yes.
All Might's not your dad. No, I know he's not my dad.
Or is he?
He basically has a shrine to the guy in his own room.
Yeah,
so
it's
he's
pretty creepy.
It's the only thing that he is a fanboy. That is it. His obsession is being is All Might in brackets fanboy of All Might and fanboy of all things hero. End bracket. Likes and dislikes. Likes being a hero.
Dislikes villains.
Villains. Done. End page. I don't really know what else there is to say about it, to be fair. He likes all things to do with heroes. He likes heroes. He likes Hero Society. And he dislikes... I mean, obviously, we're obviously not taking this part of the character sheet seriously. Not because that we don't like the roleplay aspect of a tabletop roleplay game. It's just that we are literally doing this based on a character who probably has both his personality, fears, obsessions, and even everything, including his blood type, because that's a thing that they care about in anime for some reason. I mean, we know what his blood type is because of that episode, but
do you name it right now, Joe?
Is it O?
Yeah.
Yeah.
O negative, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I think he's O negative or something like that. I don't remember.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Because I know that he says, "Oh, it must be type O." That's the only way that I remember is because Stain goes, "Oh, that kid must be type O."
Because of course.
Because yes, of course, he's the only one that can be lucky enough to fight against Stain. And I'm sorry. I know that people are gonna get upset with me saying this. That was luck. That is the pure definition of luck. That he just so happened to be the blood type that Stain's quirk does not work as effectively against. But yeah, so likes and dislikes, of course, aren't going to really go too far. Villainous, heinous acts and being good. He likes being good and hates villainous acts, not the other way around.
I'm gonna twist it.
Fear. Any fears?
Shigaraki.
I mean, I think it's being powerless in situations where he needs to have power.
Yeah, not being able to save someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally see that vary once he realizes when they come back from that alleyway and they're in that meeting.
Which is another part of his... I'd say that... You know what? Now I know what his vice is. Obsessiveness. Just obsessiveness.
Yeah.
Because he gets obsessed with something.
Stop,
he doesn't stop. And he tortures himself. Especially with the Ares situation. But yeah, I'd say that that's pretty much everything that we cover, except from trades. Trades obviously being hand-to-hand. We don't really see him do much with that much of martial arts. He's more of a punching and kicking kind of guy. And again, that could just be down to the fact that he chooses to use it. You could state that all three of the different styles that he's using, like his original fighting style, his shoot style, and then his Air Force, all of those could be, I guess, trades. Or they could just be techniques.
Or his own type of thing.
Yeah, or he has his own martial arts and it's all in one. I mean, I like the idea that it's three. One that is just using strength, one that is using kicks with strength, and it's a specific type that only can utilize kicks. And the other one is he can't get the proficiency until he unlocks the ability of the Air Force thing. Because we've been talking about this for a while. It's like, can you make proficiencies based off one specific technique? And we've sort of been going back and forth with this. That could be the deciding answer in those particular arguments. But yeah. And obviously SPMA.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Hero studies. Because he somehow knows a lot about quirks, and he somehow knows a lot about heroes. I say somehow. He's a comic book
I mean,
nerd.
he's a nerd.
Scott is
Yeah.
the more.
Yeah.
he watches and reads and learns and looks up all of the different types.
I mean,
of
that even
heroes.
goes into his obsessiveness because he actually makes notes on everything that he sees.
To be fair, you could
The
state
best detail.
you could state that as well, that like in certain situations that would grant him an advantage in those situations of like, oh, roll to see if you are tired. It's like, can I roll with advantage because I'm obsessed that I ignore my exhaustion? And it's that thing of like, okay, attempt it? Which I think that could be the thing that could sort of be why it's considered both a vice and a virtue, because you could also have it's like, I ignore my exhaustion. I'm not exhausted. I'm just ignoring it for now, so I won't roll disadvantage. But because I don't get the hours sleep that I need, I am now rolling disadvantage in the next day until like I can get something to wake me up. Which again could be quite interesting. It's like, well, I need a short rest, guys, and everyone's like, we've just literally had a long rest. What have you been doing? Well, I was training for the last 8 hours.
Watching the old hero tube.
Yeah. I was watching Toonami, and this thing called Juice Dice League came on. Juice Dice Legaway.
Oh dear.
That's a terrible joke, and I apologise.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. Have I missed anything? I mean, is gadgets
Unless we go over items, that's pretty much it.
his gadgets and equipment are pretty simple. Like he just has like gloves that can help him with the Air Force. He could specifically
The boots are designed to specifically grant his kicks more impact.
You could
Like,
just state that
then
they're the equivalent of, well, Metal Soul boots. You could basically have them that they're the equivalent of like knuckle dusters, but
Knuckle dusters
for
for
shoes. Yeah. Knuckle dusters, but for feet. Can I get some feet dusters, please? The special Air Force gauntlets.
I really want to see a monkey doing that now. Sorry, off topic. But
monkey just like wears knuckle dusters on its hand feet.
yeah.
Seem to like monkeys in these campaigns. Fighting.
I don't know. We haven't. Oh yeah, no. I was going to say you guys haven't fought one. You literally fought one and came as the man who made it. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That. See, Moncat will return, hopefully at some point. If not, we'll make a monkey-like character again return. And when I mean return, I mean just appear. Bonky, and he just has like a huge stick that he just bonks you with. Well, we've gotten enough off topic for us to believe that that's the end of this episode.
So.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
From All Might to Deku to Bonky.
Well, from All Might to Deku to Bonky. Yep, that's
If
fair
you
enough.
like this episode, please bonk the like and subscription and I don't know, the bell as well for the notifications.
And if you'd like to watch,
if you feel like it,
if you'd like to watch more of these kind of videos, definitely check out the channel. Or if you'd like to tell me how wrong either of us were in this episode, mostly me, you can just at me at AnimiteTales on Twitter. Tell me how bad my Spider-Man quote was, or even just how little I know of. I don't know anything. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. It's been us.
Bonking out.
Bonking out. Bye.
bye.
Don't sound too excited. Ciao, ciao for now.